spotlight address on human-centric leadership, putting people first in business. Please put your hands together as I invite to the stage Dr. Santrupt Misra, National Spokesperson, BJD, former CEO, Aditya Birla Group Director, Group Human Resources for the Aditya Birla Group. A round of applause, please, for Mr. Misra.
Good evening. Thank you so much, ET and ET Now, for inviting me. It's always a great pleasure to be back into my family, which I call as the HR community and fraternity. Thank you so much, Mr. Ramadurai, for making my life easier by being yourself a very human-centric leader and also presenting the case study of TCS, which has shown how people can be put at the heart of business and be led. I have just returned from what is or what should be considered as the largest human-centric leadership exercise called the national elections in this country. It has its own excitements and it has its own unspeakable aspects which cannot be spoken in a public platform. But all I would say is, if you really ever want to see what really truly is people-centric leadership, there are various models of that. Sometime in your life, be there, out there in the field, leaving your jackets, leaving your ties, your air-conditioned rooms, your fancy cars, to experience real India and to understand what exactly people-centric leadership means. I know that I have 15 minutes. I need to be crisp. So I would, as I looked at the subject, of course, this subject has been discussed ad nauseum by all of us, right through from our student days till today. And therefore, as I was thinking about it, I realized that it's like a painting that every time at different stages of your life that you look at, or a wonderful book that you read at different stages of your life, it throws a different meaning. I think as you experience different things in life, I think the same subject throws up different orientation and different meaning. As I looked at this subject called people-centric leadership and putting people first in businesses, I asked myself three big questions. Number one, is there any other concept or idea of leadership that can be there without being people-centric? Sometimes we'll end up talking about product leadership, technology leadership. We need to ask sometimes that question, that is that truly leadership? And if we continue to talk about leadership, anything other than people leadership, perhaps we are undermining the very foundations of what makes a successful organization that Mr. Ramadurai talked about. So the question comes also along with that, a big question, that why do people not automatically talk about only kind of leadership being people-centric leadership? That is because you find sometimes performance, sometimes other agenda getting rewarded in organization, and therefore people believe that there can be other kinds of leadership other than people leadership. And perhaps a time has come, given the fact that there is so much of uncertainty in the world, given the fact that the professional lives are getting shortened, given the fact that there is such a rapid adoption of technology, do we need to retake back the original foundational concept of leadership into organizations? Is one idea I would like to leave with you, and the question remains therefore is, whose job is it to do that, if not the human resources function? The second big question we got to ask, if we are really truly practicing people-centric leadership, what are the asset tests of people-centric leadership? And I think very often we do fail to practice people-centered leadership because we don't ask this question, what are the asset tests that tells us that it is a people-centric leadership that is alive in this company, no matter how much we say in our annual reports and many affirmations we make. My first belief is, and it can be controversial always, and I'm happy to be debating about this, but my first belief is, the moment people responsibility in an organization is put ahead of fiduciary responsibility, I believe that we have evolved into being a people-centric organization. Even if you're a listed company, even if you're a highly leveraged company, even if you're a company that has got private equity money, I think the moment you make people responsibility ahead of fiduciary responsibility, that is first asset test. Second asset test for me is, does the people accountability lie at the very top of the organization for all aspects of it? If there is an accident in a factory, whether it is a public sector organization, it's a government, it's a private enterprise, I believe the accountability for all aspects of people must reside at the top, very often we experience the phenomenon that if there is an integrity lapse, there is a safety lapse, often somebody junior takes the accountability, never ever senior people take the accountability. But these are being core to people leadership. The question of integrity, the question of people safety, the question of culture, the question of anti-corruption, whatever that we talk about. I believe the accountability, that's the second asset test. The third asset test for me, for people-centric leadership, is that when there is times of financial stress, if it is unfortunate situation of going into bankruptcy or getting referred to the NCLT or whatever, or filing for Chapter 11, depending on whichever continent or country you are in, the question is, before you go into that mode, do you think of your people, take care of it, find the vulnerable sections of your employees or the relationships or the customers or whoever you have, where the relationship matter, and are you able to take care of some of that? At least think about it, even if you cannot do something before you try to deal with the financial stress in the organization. That is the third asset test for me that we could take. The last important big question for me on this topic comes is, even though intellectually we all understand, as Mr. Ramadurai brought out so wonderfully, that their IPO was oversubscribed, many reasons because of the people, talent, skill, and culture. Intellectually, all of us understand. The big question remains, why is it that company after company are not able to put people-centric leadership, people first in the businesses? What's wrong and why does it happen? My belief, these are my hypotheses again, but often one's hypothesis is born out of years of experience of seeing what happens, what does not happen. I believe there are a few reasons why I think we do not manage to practice it despite intellectually understanding that people are source of everything. The number one is what is expected of us in the organization by the board of directors, by the CEO, or by our CHRO, and also what we understand to be the expectation. So there are two parts to it. One is expectation, and what I understand to be expectation. That is number one. Number two, there seems to be somehow a male-dominated society's orientation that as if we take on people at the center of everything, that is soft management, there's too much of caring. And I believe that if you're driven by performance, you look good to the outside world, but you do not look good if you are caring and you are empathetic, and as if you are practicing soft management if you put people at the heart of it. The third reason I believe that we do not manage to practice it, that we see wrong examples of people who do not put people at the center of everything, yet get rewarded, yet get grow, yet get talked about, yet get honored, have no integrity, no empathy, nothing for people. Even as CHROs and other roles, the moment the CEO says, go and do cost cutting, I go and do cost cutting, doesn't matter. Even if I have to refuse the offers I made for the young students in an institution that are just starting out in their career, I do not mind saying, I'm sorry, we are going through a turbulence and therefore we cannot honor the commitments we made to you at the start of your career. The path of least resistance that we take sometimes perhaps works very strongly against what I believe to be people-centric leadership, because we believe that somehow it is not our baby as in HR function, and we believe the path of least resistance is what is going to earn me brownie points as someone very hard driven for performance, forgetting what really truly is sustainable performance. And if I take that whole argument to ask that when we say putting people first in business, what do really businesses need or want? This is, you can't call it Maslow's hierarchy. This is Santrupt Misra hierarchy of what businesses need. I believe first businesses need to survive. The second need of theirs is growth. As Mr. Ramadurai talked about, or as you saw in your CHRO judging, it was written there, growth. The third is to create stakeholder value, including community that Mr. Ramadurai talked about. The fourth, I believe, need of businesses is a sense of glory, where excellence, reputation matters. And the fifth one is being sustainable through prosperity, being sustainable through dominance in the market. Otherwise, you see no reason why a company already having a significant market share still goes and invests into a similar business. Furthermore, because that's the search of sustainability. But if you see all of these different elements of needs of businesses, it's not that it's necessarily sequential. There's interdependence, interconnectedness. I understand that. But whenever I've thought about businesses, I believe it is survival, it is growth, it is stakeholder need fulfillment, it is the glory, and finally the sustainability through prosperity and continued prosperity is what drives businesses. And if you see each of those, it is the people factor and not the other factors, like people go in search of cheap capital, capital efficiency, production factor efficiency, disruptive business models, incremental or breakthrough innovation. When you talk about all of this driving business value in different stages of the needs, you ultimately find that it is people at the back of all of these activities that go, because it's like the back end is never visible, whereas the front end is always visible. Similarly, you find breakthrough business model, innovation are more talked about, but you find that people and their expertise, their talent, and their own ingenuity is behind all of that. And the way people play that role is being creators themselves, being innovators, being disseminators, being culture carriers, being the calming balm in organizations. And people play multiple roles in different stages to deliver these values. So my point to you is that as you talk about HR transformation today under ET Now's these ages, the question to ask is, how do we put human back into human resources function? I'm not against AI. I'm not against technology. There are wonderful developments that's happening that could make our life easier, our colleagues' experiences better. But the question is that what we got a degree? Is that what we were trained for? To take the path of least resistance, not handhold that difficult entrepreneur, not handhold that obstinate CEO, not handhold that board member who does not seem to care enough about people. What role do we need to play in HR function? What role we need to play as CHROs? And at critical moments of the organization, ask this question: how do I bring human back into human resources function, which is basically what we were trained for, to understand the drivers, the motivation, the deep needs of people, and ask how is it changing in society today? What factors are impacting them at different life stages? What is becoming critical for them? If I am not saying by being people-centric, you need to do everything that people ask you to do. For example, if I'm unprepared and I come and ask you to be the CEO of an entity or the SBU, I'm not saying you are people-centric when you say, okay, welcome, you become the SBU head. But it would be people-centric on our part to say, okay, I acknowledge that you have this aspiration. I am unable to do it at this point in time because of the following reasons. Let's work together to find ways how fast and when in this organization you can get to such a position, or what else we could do to help you to meet that aspiration. If we go through this process of hand-holding, I think we are putting people at the center of business. It does not mean this whole orientation of believing that people centricity is a soft management, whatever people say, just because the millennials came and said and asked for something, I need to do that. I believe that is popular management. That is again a form of path of least resistance, when you are not actively educating your employee or your customer to say, this is not why we would be doing it. This is not why it is consistent with our organization. And I hope that ET Now platform, you all coming together, and I saw a line of great speakers. I see some of my colleagues and friends in the audience. I hope that you will think about it. As Mr. Ramadurai, towards the end of his speech, he said, I think walking out of any conference of this kind, there's a responsibility, there is a duty on us to go back and ask some big questions of ourselves to say, how do I play my role? How have I been playing so far? And is there an opportunity to play differently? I hope you become the biggest sources of transformation in your organization, build all the value that business needs at different point in time, and in doing so, bring glory to yourself and to the HR profession. Thank you so much, ET Now, for inviting me. Thank you.